What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Fish the Moment. I only have 2 hours left in my fishing day and I want to catch a kicker fish, a 4+ pounder. So I'm going to show you my full process for trying to catch kicker fish with my electronics. Hopefully we can put one in the boat, so stay with me and see if we can do it. Today, guys, I'm out in a small lake in Arkansas, and I've actually been out here for probably 4 or 5 hours and caught 15 to 20 fish already, and my best 5 maybe go somewhere around 8 to 9 pounds. And I want to try to catch a couple of kicker fish, even just one kicker, like a 4 to 5 pounder would be awesome. So I want to show you how I go about trying to find and catch one good kicker bass out on a lake. It's a little bit different from my normal videos where I'm trying to find these big schools of fish. Instead, I just want to find one really good quality fish. So as I was kind of graphing around today, I did mark a few interesting looking brush piles and things out here. So I want to graph around and see if any of them look good. One thing I will call out about the day is that there is a pretty good thermocline that's setting in. If we take the sensitivity up here on our down imaging, you can somewhat see it. Actually, it's not showing up really well right there. Let me go back and change my settings. It may be showing up a little bit better on the traditional view. Let's crank that up. It's not setting in like super hard, but you can see as I crank that sensitivity up, it is showing up there right around like that 10-ish foot zone. It's not super clear by any means. It's kind of there, but it's kind of not. But I think that a lot of the fish are setting up shallower because that thermocline is starting to set up. And I graphed a few of these brush piles around, like this one right here, that looked like it had a lot of fish in it. And this brush pile specifically has a really nice drop by it. You can see on my side imaging view, we have a nice drop off. That brush pile setting up in that 5 to 10 foot zone, which is the exact depth where those fish should be setting up, because that thermocline again is starting to set up. At least you can see from the clear view, it's not like perfect, but it's getting there in that like 10 foot zone. So that brush pile is really looking great. It has a few fish you can see in the shadow of that brush pile. So I don't know if there are a bunch of big ones in it, but I do want to start checking these isolated brush piles because I feel like they're going to give me the best chance of getting one big fish. I found several schools of fish already today around drop-offs and things like that. It's just all of them seem to be smaller. So I want to go through and fish more isolated targets. I want to graph a few more brush piles because I've only really graphed that one that you just saw, and it was really good. I'm not going to fish it because I literally just drove over it and it's only 5 feet deep. I'm going to give it maybe 15-20 minutes to rest, but I'm gonna graph around in here, see if we can find anything else that looks kind of unique. Ooh, there's a pretty pile right there. Dang, look at that thing. 8 foot of water, 8-9 foot of water. There's a few isolated little stick-ups around it too, which are pretty interesting. There's some fish definitely visible in that pile. I like the fact that there's a few pieces of brush. There's brush right here, obviously, that we can mark, but there's also a few random pieces of brush like that right there. They could also hold some fish, and then also a little stick up right here. I like the fact that there's multiple pieces of brush in a small little area because I can pick off each of those individual pieces rather than just having one target to fish. That isolated brush pile that we found earlier looked pretty good, but it was just by itself, so not as many targets to hit. That looked pretty good right there though. Okay, so we're getting into several more brush piles around here. There might be one on that right side that has a couple fish in it. The rest of them, looks like there may be a fish or two around. Really, the only thing that looks interesting here is this little kind of break, and there's a little bit of a deal there. I'm just gonna mark that with a 1 fish symbol just to see. We're gonna keep rolling though. I know there's several brush piles in this area. I just don't have a strong feeling that there's a ton of good brush piles out here right now. There probably only is going to be 1 or 2 that's holding quality fish. So if I can fish that spot, the first one, and then maybe that brush pile, maybe just to get started, fish like 3 brush piles, get a little bit of a feeling of whether the fish are setting up in them really well, because if not, we may have to do something different to catch a kicker. But at least my first instinct is to fish these piles. If this doesn't work though, there are a few other options still to get a kicker, so I'm not going to sell out exclusively on the piles. There's a bunch of brush right there too, just doesn't look like there are any fish around those piles. right now. So let's spin back around, go back to that brush pile we just marked, so we didn't drive over the top of it, and then we'll hit those other piles as well, see if we can draw out a big fish. So one thing I've noticed about all these brush piles over here is that there are so many random species of fish in them. Oh God, get out of there. That I thought I wasn't gonna be able to get a big bite, but I got a big one on. It's just in the middle of this pile. See if I can actually get him out. I got him on the big worm. He's in there, he's on. You can see him bouncing my rod. See if I can undo this nightmare here. Come on, fish. He's down in that pile. How did I get that tangled? There he is. Nice one. Not a big one. Thought it was bigger than that. That is not the kicker I was looking for, but it is a fish on the big worm. Got that thing on the Ozark rig. I don't know how he got me hung that bad. I thought it was way bigger just because of all of the tension he was putting on me, but that's a solid little fish. The brush pile, not the kicker we're looking for though. A lot of little fish in these piles as well, so gonna have to see, but getting a bite right away is not too bad. Let me retie this deal. Good one, feels like a little one. Yeah, little one, dang it. All the brush with a bunch of dots in it. All little fish. It's not a bad fish, it's just not a, oh. Come on, fish. There we go. Not a bad fish, it's just not all that big. We want a 5-pounder, not a freaking pounder. I'm gonna quickly regraph a couple of these brush piles that I passed over earlier. They had a ton of fish around them, and since I am getting bit out of pretty much every piece of brush that I see a bunch of fish in, I wanna just see if I get enough bites that I eventually catch a good one. It is surprising to me that I'm not actually getting a quality bite out of any of these brush piles, but maybe I just really need to avoid those super packed piles. I do think there was a pile here that looked like it had some fish around it. Yeah, right there. On that right side over there, you can see it. There's a few fish that are stacked up. I thought I saw that earlier. And it's not like crazy or anything. There's just a few fish. And if we go up to the full side scan view, maybe this is actually even better, because if you look at that deal, it's not like there's a ton of fish. There's just a couple fish, and that's a smaller piece of brush. So maybe that's actually what we need to be fishing. There's more brush around there too, but that right there is definitely something. I'm gonna mark that with a fish symbol just because I may have it marked in the past to kind of get lined back up on this deal. Yeah, I already had that marked before. Apparently there was grass there before, now there's just brush. So let's get over there and make a cast on that, because that could be pretty good. Got him. Is this a good one finally? The isolated brush? Yes, there we go. Okay. Isolated brush with fewer fish on it, and we get a good one, guys. There was not nearly as many fish on that pile by far as you saw on the side scan, and that's what we get. That's how you get a kicker in the boat, guys, right there. Absolute good one. Graphed him up. You saw there were like 2 fish on that little stick up, and got that fish on that Ozark rig. That Ozark rig, guys, if you have not gotten it, 5/0 3/8 ounce Ozark rig on the big worm, catches so many good fish. That is a good one. Let's get a weight on that fish. Here we go, guys. 3 pounds, 10 ounces. Beautiful fish, almost a 4-pounder. Exactly the size fish we've been looking for. And it was really awesome to graph them, show you exactly what was down there, and put that fish in the boat. Beautiful fish. Let's get that fish back down the lake. Oh, and that is how it is done, guys. On that Ozark rig, zoom 10.5-inch old monster in the plum apple color. My favorite baits of all time. And there's that brush that's out there, guys, on the live scope. You can see it, it's a little bit sparser, at least not as big, and you don't see a ton of fish around it like the last couple of piles that were just loaded with fish. I know I missed the side scan or the live scope recording on the last pile, apologies. But anyways, not as many fish around this spot, at least around the pile. There's some fish that are kind of out in front. I think those might be actually brim or something else. But that isolated piece of brush with just a few around it, definitely the deal to get a bigger bite. Got him. Good one. Oh, a really good one. Another isolated pile, guys. First one worked, next one worked. Nice fish. That's what I'm talking about, guys. Another solid 2 3/4 pounder probably. He's kind of skinny, maybe a 3 pounder if he was a little bit healthier, but that is exactly what we're talking about. Big worm, big fish. Another kicker here. That is so cool. We graphed this pile at the very beginning of the day. It was isolated pile. There's a couple of fish up there, but nothing crazy. And that's a really nice fish. Second biggest fish of the day right there. Let's get back down the lake. Oh, there we go, guys. And that's what's called dialing in the pattern within the pattern. Obviously, we're catching fish in brush piles, but we now know the depth zone, 10 to 12 foot. We know they can't be loaded up with a pile of fish. You can see a few fish around this pile, but it's not like the first few piles where there were just fish everywhere. And it was kind of an isolated pile by itself. It actually looks bigger here on live scope because of my range and everything right now. It's not actually that big of a pile, and it's pretty cool because I dropped that worm in there second cast and that fish absolutely came unglued on it. So it's not like it's hard to get these fish to bite either. When you get that worm around them, they're just gonna eat it. Oh man, there was one right there. Man, that's awesome, guys. Catching those 2 quality fish in just a couple of hours, graphing them up, super fun. I got all those fish on that Ozark rig and the big worm. The Ozark rig has completely replaced my Texas rig, guys. Usually on my big worm, I'd be throwing a 5/0 extra wide gap hook with a tungsten 3/8 ounce split sinker. I'd have to peg the thing. It takes forever to retie, and it doesn't even come through brush all that well. But with that Ozark rig, it comes through the brush extremely well. The only time I got hung up was actually when I set the hook on the fish and it wrapped me around inside the pile. Every other time it came straight through. It gives the bait a different fall and action, and when it hooks the fish, that Ozark rig always gets them right in the top of the mouth. So the hookup ratio is fantastic. I cannot say enough good things about this rig. It's really affordable, better than buying tungsten slip sinkers, and it just freaking works, guys, on that big worm. So if you haven't tried the Core Tackle Ozark rig, definitely give it a shot because it is worth a try. It doesn't just work with the big worms, it works with flipping, shallow cover. Anything you would do with a regular Texas rig, you can do with the Ozark rig and more. Hopefully you guys learned something from this video. You saw all the spots I caught my fish on side scan before I actually fished them and caught the fish, so hopefully that's helpful. If you enjoyed this type of video, leave a comment down below and let me know what your favorite tip was from this video. Thanks again for checking it out, and we'll see you on the next one.